Rayan had never imagined he would leave Earth, let alone step foot on a planet as mysterious as Zerath Prime. He was just a skilled young engineer who loved machines and solving problems. When he got selected for a special mission to help upgrade communication systems on Zerath, he was excited but nervous. He had heard that the Zerathians were peaceful but followed strict customs. Still, he was curious to see the stars, explore new lands, and do something meaningful. Zerath Prime was more beautiful than anything Rayan had seen in his life. The sky shimmered with soft colors, and the buildings were carved from glowing crystal that seemed to breathe with energy. His first few days were spent learning about the new equipment and the strange way technology worked on this planet. Everything was powered by something they called Heartstone energy, and he was still trying to understand it. On the fourth day, while exploring a part of the palace grounds during a short break, Rayan noticed a small door hidden behind thick blue vines. It didn't look guarded or locked, and his curiosity got the better of him. He gently pushed it open and found himself in a quiet space filled with the sound of running water. The air was warm and strange. Glowing stones lit the area in soft, pink light. Then he saw her. In the middle of a smooth stone pool surrounded by flower petals floating on the surface was a young woman. She wasn't human, but she was the most graceful being Rayan had ever seen. Her skin shimmered like polished silver under the light, and her long white hair flowed behind her in the water like ribbons of silk. She was resting with her eyes closed. Unaware of his presence, Rayan froze in shock. He realized at once that he had made a mistake. This was not a place for visitors. It was a private space, most likely belonging to someone important. Just as he was about to turn and leave quietly, a soft humming sound came from the side. Guards. Two tall Zerathian guards rushed in with glowing staffs in hand. They saw Rayan standing there, stunned, and the princess in the pool. She opened her eyes and looked at him calmly, without panic or anger. Her eyes were large and violet, shining like twin moons. She didn't scream. She didn't cover herself. She simply looked at him with a quiet gaze. "What is your name?" she asked softly. "Surprising everyone. Rayan," he stammered. "I didn't mean to, I swear. I didn't know this was—" But it was too late. The guards moved toward him and took hold of his arms. Rayan didn't fight back. He knew he had entered a place he wasn't supposed to. One of the guards turned to the princess and bowed deeply. "Your Highness," he said, "you know the ancient law. This outsider has seen you during your sacred cleanse. He must be brought before the council." Rayan's heart pounded. Sacred cleanse? Council? What did this all mean? The princess stood up slowly, wrapping herself in a long, glowing robe handed to her by an assistant. She looked at Rayan again, then nodded silently. "Take him to the elders," she said. That evening, Rayan sat in a glowing chamber surrounded by high-ranking Zerathians. They sat in a circle, their robes long and covered in symbols. A few looked at him with curiosity, others with suspicion. The head elder stood. "Human," the elder said, "do you know the law you have broken?" "I didn't mean to break anything," Rayan replied honestly. "I was just exploring. I didn't know what was behind the door." "The royal bathing room is sacred," the elder said. "Only a royal's chosen may enter. You have seen Princess Thalara during the ritual of purity. Our law is clear. One who witnesses such a moment must take responsibility." Rayan swallowed. "What does that mean?" "It means," the elder said, "you are to either be bonded to the princess or punished by exile from our world." Rayan was speechless. Bonded? Was that marriage? Service? Something else? Before he could speak again, the princess herself entered the chamber. She stood before the elders and looked at Rayan with a calm expression. "I believe the man is honest," she said. "He did not mean to enter. But the law is the law. I will choose the bond. Let him stay under my protection." Gasps filled the chamber. Some looked shocked, others whispered to one another. Rayan couldn't understand what had just happened. Did the princess really just choose to be bonded to him? The elder nodded. So it shall be. From this day, Rayan of Earth shall serve beside Princess Thalara under the bond of law. Rayan stood there frozen. Was this real? Just a few hours ago, he had been checking wires and tools. Now, he was being joined by law to an alien princess because he walked through the wrong door. Princess Thalara walked over to him and whispered, "Don't worry, I have my reasons. You'll understand in time." And with that, the strangest chapter of Rayan's life had just begun. Rayan didn't sleep at all that night. Everything had changed so quickly. One moment he was a visitor on a work mission. The next, he was bonded by Zarathian law to a royal princess he had only just met. His thoughts kept spinning in circles. What did this bond really mean? Was it like marriage on Earth? Would he be stuck on this planet forever? And most of all, why had Princess Thalara chosen to protect him? The next morning, a palace assistant brought him to a large chamber filled with soft light and strange glowing plants. Princess Thalara was waiting there, sitting on a smooth white bench. She looked calm and peaceful. "Sit," she said kindly, motioning to the space beside her. Rayan obeyed quietly. "You look worried," she said, watching him. "I'm confused," he admitted. "I didn't mean to break your laws. I never wanted to cause trouble." Thalara smiled softly. "I believe you. That's why I chose the bond. If I hadn't, they would have sent you back to Earth, and worse, your mission would have been marked as a disgrace. That wouldn't be fair." Rayan blinked. "But you didn't have to help me. You barely know me." She looked ahead, her voice calm. "Sometimes we have to act before understanding everything. I saw truth in your eyes. I trust that more than rules." They sat in silence for a moment. Then she added, "Besides, I have my own reasons. This world, my people. They are afraid of change. Maybe this bond will help open their minds." Rayan didn't fully understand, but something about her words stayed with him. From that day forward, Rayan began his new life in the palace. He wasn't treated like a prisoner, more like a special guest with responsibilities. He had his own chamber, meals brought to him, and guards to escort him. But he wasn't free to go wherever he pleased anymore. Thalara made sure he wasn't alone. She met with him often, sometimes in the palace gardens, sometimes in the quiet reading halls. She was curious about Earth. She asked questions about human life, machines, cities, music, food, and even jokes. In return, she told him about Zarathian traditions, how their energy crystals worked, how their people formed bonds of loyalty, and how their laws had not changed for hundreds of years. The more Rayan learned, the more he saw that the Zarathians were deeply respectful, but sometimes too tied to the past. Slowly, something unexpected began to happen. Rayan started to enjoy Thalara's company. She was intelligent, graceful, and strong in her own quiet way. She didn't talk too much, but when she did, her words had meaning. And even though they came from very different worlds, he found comfort in her presence. At the same time, something else was happening behind the palace walls. Whispers. Nobles began to talk in quiet corners. Some said that the princess had planned the bath meeting, that she wanted to break tradition and needed an excuse. Others said Rayan had tricked her, pretending to be lost just to get close to power. The more people whispered, the bigger the story became. Rayan didn't know any of this until one day he and Thalara were walking through the public garden and an older nobleman passed by. He stopped, looked at them, and said with a frown, "So, this is the human that caused all this?" Thalara held her head high. "Yes, and he is my responsibility." The nobleman snorted and walked away. After that, Rayan asked her, "Is this all really that big of a deal?" She stopped and looked at him. "To some, yes. Our laws are ancient. For me to bond with someone not chosen by the council and from another world is something unheard of. They think I'm ruining tradition." "I didn't ask for this," Rayan said softly. "I know," she said. "But now we are both part of it. The question is, what will we do with it?" Rayan thought for a long moment. "What do you want to do?" She turned to him with steady eyes. "I want change. I want my people to see that honor isn't about rules. It's about truth. And you're honest. You came here to work. You stayed because of a law. But maybe you'll help me because you believe in something too." Rayan didn't answer right away. But he knew she was right. He had come to Zerath to fix machines. Now it felt like he was being asked to help fix something much bigger. The next day, he began working again. This time with Zerathian engineers in the palace lab. His job was to help them upgrade communication systems that linked their planet with nearby outposts. He used Earth methods while learning the strange Zerathian energy codes. People watched him closely. Some still doubted him, but others, especially the younger engineers, began to see that Rayan was here to help, not harm. Meanwhile, Thalara continued her royal duties. She stood before the council, visited schools, spoke to villagers, and always carried herself with calm and grace. But behind her smile, she knew something serious was coming. The palace rumors were growing louder. Some nobles had started writing petitions to remove her from royal duties. They believed she had broken sacred law by bonding with a human. If the pressure grew too strong, the council might act. One evening, while watching the twin moons rise, from the palace balcony, Rayan asked her, "Are you scared?" She nodded slightly. "Yes, but change always begins with discomfort. I'm ready for whatever comes." Rayan looked at her and said quietly, "If you face it, I'll face it with you." She smiled, not the calm, distant smile she often gave, but a real one, soft and grateful. Their bond had started because of a mistake, but now it was becoming something else, something real. The days passed, but peace inside the palace began to disappear. The bond between Princess Thalara and Rayan was now known across all of Zerath Prime. What began as a small mistake had grown into something much larger, a public matter filled with opinions, debates, and sharp whispers behind closed doors. Everywhere Thalara went, people watched her, some with respect, others with doubt. Many noble families were angry. They believed tradition was being broken. They feared change. Some even believed that Thalara had created the whole situation on purpose. They thought she had used Rayan to challenge the old customs. Rayan was unaware of how serious things were becoming until the chief palace advisor, Lord Vellum, came to speak with him one morning. "You must leave the palace gardens, Rayan," Lord Vellum said coldly. "Your presence is causing unrest. The people talk. The nobles write letters. The elders meet more often than usual. This is not just about you anymore." Rayan stood quietly. "I never wanted to cause a problem." "Intentions don't always matter," Lord Vellum replied. "But actions do, and you are now at the center of something very old and very powerful." Later that day, Rayan met Thalara in the quiet music chamber. She was playing a soft instrument that sounded like wind and water mixed together. When she saw him, she stopped and listened carefully as he told her what happened. "They want me to stay out of sight," he said. "Maybe they think that if I disappear, the bond will be forgotten." Thalara shook her head gently. "That will not happen. We cannot hide from this. We must face it." Rayan looked tired. "But what if it's all too much? You might lose your royal status. I'm just a visitor here. You have everything to lose." She stood and looked him in the eyes. "Then I will lose it. I'm not afraid of that." I'm afraid of staying silent while the world needs change. Her words were strong, but outside things were not so clear. A secret meeting was held among the council elders and noble leaders. There, many claimed that Thalara had violated sacred law by bonding with an outsider. Some even accused her of planning it all. A few nobles who once supported her now turned away, worried about their own family's honor. Rayan began to feel the pressure too. When he walked through the palace halls, some servants avoided his gaze. A few younger Zarathians still greeted him kindly, but the feeling of being unwelcome grew stronger. Still, he continued his work with the engineers. Together, they were creating a new signal bridge between Earth and Zerath Prime. This connection could help both worlds communicate better and share knowledge. It was important work, but Rayan often wondered if it even mattered anymore. Then one night, everything changed. A message was sent to the royal family. The High Council had made a decision. Thalara was to appear before the council in a public hearing. She would have to explain her actions, defend her bond with Rayan, and prove that it was not a trick or disrespect to Zarathian law. If she failed to do so, she would lose her royal title, and Rayan would be banished from Zerath Prime. The palace fell into silence. Thalara did not cry or panic. She stood calmly and said, "Then I will face them." Rayan felt helpless. "What can I do?" "Be there," she said. "Your presence will say more than words ever could." The day of the hearing arrived. The Grand Hall of Stars was filled with nobles, council members, and many watchers from around the city. The room glowed with light from floating crystals. Above, a deep silence filled the space as Thalara walked in, wearing a simple silver robe. Rayan followed beside her. The elders sat high above, looking down. One by one, they asked their questions. "Did you know the human would enter your private chamber?" "No," Thalara answered clearly. "Did you use this moment to challenge our laws?" "I followed the law. I accepted the bond because I saw truth in his heart." "Do you believe an outsider can respect our customs?" "I believe anyone, outsider or not, can carry honor." Then, a surprise voice came from behind the crowd. It was Nirael, Thalara's old childhood friend, and now a rising noble leader. "I do not doubt your heart, Thalara," Nirael said, "but the law must protect our people. If we allow emotions to change ancient rules, where does it stop? What about balance? What about our future?" The room murmured. Rayan stepped forward. "I'm not here to take anything," he said, voice steady. "I never meant to break your rules. I only wanted to do my work and go home. But something happened that I didn't plan. I met your princess, and she didn't treat me like a stranger. She treated me with fairness when others wanted to punish me." He paused. "If you think I'm a danger, I'll leave. But if you believe that respect, honesty, and learning from one another are important, then maybe this bond is not a weakness. Maybe it's a step forward." The hall grew quiet again. Thalara turned to the elders. "Judge me if you must, but I will not apologize for choosing truth." The elders whispered among themselves for a long time. Then the head elder stood. "This is not a time for fear. It is a time for wisdom. The bond may not have begun by choice, but it has become something greater." He looked at Thalara and Rayan. "Your bond will remain, but more than that, we will begin to review the old laws. The world is changing. Perhaps we must too." Gasps filled the hall. Some were happy, some were shocked, but no one spoke against it. Rayan looked at Thalara. She smiled at him, calm but proud. What had started as a mistake was now something bigger than both of them. It had become a symbol of hope. The hearing was over, but its impact was only beginning. News of the council's decision spread quickly across Zerath Prime. People were surprised. Some were glad, others were confused or even upset. For the first time in many generations, The council had agreed to review the old laws. It was a sign that the world was changing. Princess Thalara had won the right to keep her bond with Rayan, and more importantly, she had opened the door for future changes in Zarathian tradition. But with that victory came new problems. Nobles who once supported Thalara began to grow silent. A few withdrew from her court. Some noble families feared losing their place in the royal system. Others were simply too afraid to support something that felt so different from what they had known all their lives. Rayan saw the shift happening. The palace still welcomed him, but it felt colder now. He noticed fewer smiles, fewer greetings, and more quiet stares. Some nobles didn't speak to him at all. A few servants avoided his path. He understood. They weren't used to someone like him being this close to royalty, but still, it stung. One day, while walking in the garden with Thalara, he asked her, "Do you ever regret bonding with me?" She stopped walking and looked at him carefully. "No, never. But I do worry, for you. I brought you into this, and now your life is no longer simple." Rayan smiled gently. "I was never meant to have a simple life. Maybe that's why I found myself in a place like this." Thalara nodded, though her eyes looked tired. "There is one more challenge ahead. I must speak to the public. The people have questions. I need to show them I'm still their princess, and that I made my choice with care." A public speech was a rare thing. Royal members didn't often speak directly to the citizens, but Thalara insisted. She believed the people needed to hear the truth from her, not just whispers and gossip passed through others. The palace prepared a large courtyard for the event. Hundreds of Zarathians gathered, elders, students, workers, and noble families too. Floating crystals lit the area with a soft glow as the sky darkened into evening. Rayan stood nearby, watching silently as Thalara stepped forward. She wore no crown, no heavy robes, just a simple outfit made of woven silver threads. She looked more like a citizen than a ruler. She raised her hand gently, and the crowd quieted. "I stand before you not as a princess, but as a daughter of Zerath," she began. "I know that many of you have questions. Some may feel uncertain. Others may feel fear. But I ask you to listen, not to rumors, not to titles, but to my heart." She paused, then continued. "When Rayan entered the sacred bath space, it was not by plan. It was a mistake. But what followed was not a mistake. I chose to protect him because I saw truth in his eyes. I chose to bond with him because I believe. Our world must grow. If we stay locked in old rules forever, how can we ever become stronger?" The crowd listened closely. Some nodded. Others looked unsure. "I do not ask you to forget our past. I ask you to build a better future with me. A future where wisdom matters more than fear, where respect matters more than rules. I will always serve Zerath, but not just with tradition, with vision." The speech ended with soft applause. It wasn't loud, but it was honest. Some people clapped with emotion. Others remained quiet, still unsure. But a small group of young Zarathians stepped forward and bowed deeply to Thalara. That single moment was more powerful than any cheer. Later that night, back in her private chamber, Thalara leaned against the balcony wall, looking at the stars. Rayan stood beside her. "You were amazing today," he said. She looked at him and gave a soft smile. "I'm not sure if it was enough." "It was," he said. "It may not fix everything right now, but it planted something, and sometimes that's the beginning." Just then, a soft knock came at the door. It was Nirael, the noblewoman who had once been Thalara's childhood friend and had spoken against her in the hearing. "I'd like to speak with you," Nirael said quietly. Thalara nodded and invited her in. Nirael stood silently for a moment. Then she said, "You were brave. I still don't agree with every choice, But today, I saw someone who truly believes in their people. I do, Thalara said. Even the ones who don't agree with me. I think, Nirael continued, that your bond with the human is strange, but it's also real. I can see that now. Rayan was surprised by the kindness in her tone. I won't stand in your way anymore, Nirael said. But be careful. Not everyone will change so easily. After she left, Rayan asked, Do you trust her? Thalara replied, I don't need to trust everyone. I just need to show them I'm not afraid of their questions. In the weeks that followed, things slowly began to improve. Some nobles returned to court. More citizens showed open support. The engineers Rayan worked with began to treat him as one of their own. And the communication bridge between Earth and Zerath was almost complete. For the first time in many days, the palace felt warm again. One evening, while walking through the gardens, Thalara turned to Rayan and said, You've been through so much because of me, and still, you stayed. He looked at her with calm eyes. I stayed because I believe in you. She reached for his hand. Then let's walk forward, together, no matter what comes next. And under the twin moons of Zerath, they did. After the speech and the council's decision, life on Zerath Prime slowly began to change, not just for Princess Thalara and Rayan, but for the whole planet. The bond that had started as an accident had become a symbol of new hope. Many people started to think about what it meant to be a Zerathian, and how that might include more than just old customs. Rayan found himself more accepted each day. The engineers he worked with treated him like a true colleague. Children from the city came to see the human who bonded with the princess, and some even asked if they could learn Earth ways too. It was strange to be so important just because of a law no one really understood before. Thalara worked harder than ever. She held meetings with the council and spoke to her people. Sometimes the nobles still questioned her, but the queen's smile never faded. She believed deeply in what she was doing, to open a new path for Zerath Prime and all its people. One morning, Rayan was called to the palace laboratory. The new communication bridge was ready for testing. Together with Zerathian engineers, they activated the device that connected their planet directly with Earth. For the first time, messages could travel instantly between the two worlds. As Rayan watched the glowing signals, he felt proud. This was more than just a machine. It was a connection between two very different lives, two very different cultures, and he was part of it. That evening, Princess Thalara invited Rayan to a quiet dinner in the palace gardens. The stars shone above, and soft lights floated gently in the air. They sat close, sharing stories from their worlds. You've changed so much since you arrived, Thalara said with a gentle smile. Rayan looked at her, his eyes warm. I have. Because of you. Because of this place. Because of the bond. She reached out and took his hand. We have both changed, and this bond, it is no longer just a rule or law. It is our choice. Rayan nodded. Yes, and I want to face whatever comes next with you. Their quiet moment was interrupted by a knock on the garden door. It was a messenger with news from the council. The head elder stepped forward and said, Princess Thalara, Rayan, the council wishes to announce a new law today, one that allows foreign beings to join the royal family if they are worthy by their actions and loyalty. This law is inspired by your bond. The crowd that had gathered around the palace cheered softly. It was a historic day. Zerath Prime was stepping into a new future. Thalara and Rayan looked at each other with joy and relief. Weeks turned into months. Together, they worked not only on technology, but also on building trust between Earth and Zerath. Scientists, artists, and teachers traveled between the planets to share ideas and culture. Zerathians began to learn Earth languages, and Earthlings studied the ancient ways of Zerath. Still, challenges remained. Some nobles resisted, and some citizens feared losing their identity, but Thalara and Ryan never gave up. They believed that true strength came from accepting differences and working together. One evening, as they walked through the palace gardens where they had first met, Ryan said, "Do you remember the day I walked into your bath?" Thalara laughed, softly. "How could I forget? That moment changed everything." He smiled. "I never imagined that an accident could lead to this." She looked at him with shining eyes. Life is full of unexpected moments. Sometimes those moments bring the greatest gifts. They stood together under the glowing stars, feeling the warmth of a future they were building, one where love, respect, and courage were stronger than old fears and rules. And so, the story of the alien princess and the human engineer became a legend, not just of a scandal, but of hope, change, and the power of choice.